Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome in today. Welcome in to episode 1. That's right. We're at episode 1. I considered the announcement episode to be episode 0. So last stream I did when it was last week. And yes, Cole is right here, taking a nap right now. I will let you know that the Cole cam is definitely grainy because it's my overhead desk cam that's been just pointed towards him, so you could at least see him. He's definitely here hanging out. But I do have a brand new show for you, and I'm thanking everybody for coming in. Thank you for showing up live today. Thank you, Mega Cards. Thank you, James Boone. Thank you, Belmont, Thor C. Thank you, Brian Harmon. Some regulars here to start off show 1, so that is great. Please feel free to talk amongst yourselves in the chat, and I will be monitoring that as we go through today's show. But I actually have an agenda. That's right, an attempted agenda here. And my first agenda is not to turn everybody off with too much background jazz music, because just a little bit is fine, but sometimes I forget to turn that down and it gets a bit overpowering. So yeah, let's just let the chat get going here, let the stream get rolling. And if you do not mind, please do help me out today by dropping a like on the stream. And if you're on Twitter, you could retweet my tweet about the show. That would be helpful so we get a couple more people in here. Hello, Edward. How are you today? Great to see you. Hello, you? All right, great. So I think everything's getting good. Everything looks good. Good to see you again, Belmont. I'm glad you got rained out today. We were talking about rain last time, and yeah, I actually got a lot of rain here over the last few days, so that's been nice. Can't really complain about that. It's been so dry here. Hey, all wheezy. So, welcome in to episode 1 of the CRT Bunker. I'm not the greatest at branding, and so that may change at some point. Because I'll be honest, I don't know how to lure people in by just titling a show that's an episodic, like just live show where we're going to do multiple different things. I do think there's going to be some segments that are going to reappear, including something I've got planned again for today. And so as this show goes, it could change names, but for now it's called The Bunker. This is episode 1. And I wanted to start off today by chatting a little bit about Atari. There's actually been quite a bit of Atari news lately. And, sometimes I wonder, does anybody even really care? And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm actually a big proponent and fan of the Atari 2600. So I'd like to just refresh you guys on a couple things here. We'll talk about the things that I'm referring to as far as Atari news. And so to do that, let's just switch over here to our dashboard view. And I'm going to refer to some things here. First, I'm going to refer to Retro RGB and a post by Alex Mitchell from back on August 23rd. And this was around the time, within a couple days, that Atari announces this new 2600 Plus, and it is an emulation-based console. And I'm not going to go into Alex's breakdown here completely, but he has a lot of information that he was able to find out and that they got, listed in this article that you're welcome to go back and fully read. The stuff that may be a little bit important, so it's supposed to be a modern take on the VCS. Case in point, it is a software emulation box, but there are a few interesting features. It's styled after the 4-switch Atari 2600, which that's the classic style. It's compatible with physical cartridges from both the 2600 and the 7800, so that's a bit different. And it includes a 10-in-1 game cartridge, and that is what's pictured there with the dip switch to pick the games. It uses original controllers. It's compatible with the original controllers. It has HDMI output with a video widescreen mode. And I don't think there's any announcements on the actual capabilities of this system as far as what the actual output is. Normally you see stuff like this and it just sounds like what? Like some kind of just blah, not exciting thing, right? The compatibility for a controller and the compatibility for the 7800 cartridges are most likely the biggest draws on this machine. But that's not the only Atari news. So there's this console that's been announced in late August, and then it wasn't but a couple of weeks later there was some more Atari news. So you get them announcing that they're doing that, and then Atari Age. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Atari Age, but this is pretty much the community that was built 20 plus years ago, and it has it's basically started by this gentleman Albert, who started this site and pretty much has fostered the entire Atari community behind the scenes for like homebrews and development, all kinds of stuff. I mean, I can't even begin to grasp how much stuff there is in Atari Age. They do all kinds of things. They even have places where you can buy from support developers who make games. And so the interesting news about this was that just last Thursday, Albert here came and made a huge announcement that Atari Age, this community forum webpage, is being bought by Atari. So they're not. It's a situation again where we see a big company coming in and starting to acquire things. They're now acquiring the Atari Age forum, which for a long time has been a great repository for information for people doing things, even in things like modification. I can't cover the depth of Atari Age in just like a little news segment here. I'll be here all morning talking about it. So, right. And I think that some people are starting to wonder, like, is this the same kind of thing where a company comes in, grabs IP and shuts down these servers, or are they actually going to let the community continue on? Now, what Albert does say in his post here is that he is moving into a new position where he's basically remaining on as the head lead of Atari Age, and he's got goals. And again, if you want to read more about this, you can go to the forums on Atari Age and look for the post that's dated Thursday, 10/24 from Albert himself. And that's funny. That is about 20 minutes ago. That would be Thursday, the 7th of September. So that's just some more interesting news. I will give you we'll take a look at some options here. Now, I know this is kind of a little jumping around, but it got me to thinking about, well, first off, this new console, is this thing really anything that's special? If you want to play Atari games right now, your options are unbelievably endless, especially for emulation, right? You could have already had one of the other flashback consoles. There's even people who make modifications to those flashback consoles and let you play original carts on them. So there's not, it's confusing to me why they keep thinking there's a hardware need for the Atari console. Because there are so many options. There were so many Ataris made. You can go back the path of having an original console, or you can do one of the many other options to emulate this machine, or play it through even like the Mister or other emulation. I mean, these games are so simple to play. It's not as if you need a lot of hardware. I mean, the Raspberry Pis can easily emulate very well an Atari 2600 and 7800 library. So this, to me, got me thinking, like, is this product just doomed from the get-go? But let's look at a little bit deeper into this. Again, so they announced this console, they announced this, and then, again, I started to think, well, the best option right now that people actually wanted was this. because right now it's difficult to get like RGB from your original console, and the best option right now is this 7800 game drive, which came out recently. This is a Stone Age Gamer. It's not in stock, but this allows you to go AV out of this port right here, and you could play RGB out of that port. Okay, so you don't have to even you mod your original hardware. You can use this, get RGB video, and that's really the best option. Of course, this is $150 and highly sought after, and it goes in anything with a card slot. Now, will this work with the new Atari? No one knows, right? It'll be hard to say that it would, but there's a little bit more news. So if you did have this cartridge, or if you didn't have this cartridge, you used to be able to modify your Atari, and that was with this RGB kit here. It's a pretty lengthy install. It's one of the first big kits for RGB I did way back in the day. This is Tim Worthington's shop online, but recently I was pointed out that this is out of stock and no longer economically viable to manufacture. So you can't buy the modifications any longer for this kit to make your original Atari 2600 RGB video. The kits are no longer available. So you can't actually get RGB from these kits. Will these kits ever come back? I have no idea. It's all just a lot of stuff, a lot of thing going on in Atari world, which I find is interesting. But at the same time, my question to you is, did any of you care? Does any of this news about Atari make you worrisome? I think probably the biggest thing that sucks to me is the fact that this RGB kit is gone and it may never come back. I do not know if there's a new board available for it, but that's a little disappointing because I actually did a couple of these installs back in the day. They were fun. They were a great learning experience. Working on the Atari 2600 is one of the best consoles to go in. And actually, I would show you, this is the one, it was like the very first console that I modified. That, and like I say, nope, nobody really cares. That's right. But this has the Tim Worthington kit installed in it. Works great. And actually, I can plug this in to my Sony 9L monitor here. And this is an item, I know I was talking to you, this is an item I got from Atari Age. Look, it says it right there. This is the other cartridge. Sorry, it's not coming into focus very well. There it is. This is the other cartridge. This is the current easy to get EverDrive cartridge. It's called the Harmony Cart, and it works just fine. You put it in there and turn it on, pops up. So I don't know if that'll actually let me. Yeah, okay. Then this is an old cartridge. This is from like 2011 is when this was originally made. But there's all this stuff. There's already been a billion ways to play the Atari, right? Like a billion ways. So how much does anybody really care about any of this stuff? Well, what's to get excited about? It actually sucks. A lot of this stuff is going out. I'm worried about the forum probably going away, and if not, maybe that'll be a good thing. Maybe Atari wants to put out some developers' products. Like, for example, this is another one that I got at a convention, and it's from Champ Games, and he's an old coder from back in the day who used to write games and submit them to Atari, and they make games now like this, reproductions like this that you can buy. I bought this at a convention. I think it was like $40 or $50. It's a nice quality reproduction or new thing to me, but so there's definitely a community there that's kind of been holstered behind the scenes. But again, it's this idea that Atari still holds some great value in the gaming scene. I don't feel like there's a lot of new people grasping to come play these old games. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but You know, there's so many different ways to play it. I'm just trying to pick a game to put on in the background. Let's just let that, whatever that is. You can actually see it's running. But we'll see. Time will tell. Will there be another RGB kit? I don't know, because, again, does anybody even care to redesign this and spend a lot of time? I feel like the people that really want something, their best bet, if you want to go original hardware, find a decent working console and just try to get one of these 7800 EverDrives if you're doing that. Or, again, Mr. Cade or Mr. is sorry, not Mr. Cade, just the regular Mr. is a great option for this. And finally, you could just go back and use RF and enjoy it, and who cares, right? I think that's the big sentiment, you know, is it going to be bad? So, anyway, that's really all I had for first 15 minutes there, spiel on Atari. I just thought all that news was interesting, and just some notes that you might see some more things in the news from Atari. I don't know that this is a big deal or not, this little console. Is it something that's just like $100 that they're going to throw in at like the holiday season in Walmart? It's going to sit on the shelves and just turn into nothing. We've all seen that happen before. Or do they actually care about the IP and try to make something better? I don't know. I feel like they tried to do that before with that other little console that they made. That they made a big deal about, that had like a Ryzen computer in it, and that was pretty much a flop. So I don't really know what to think about it from them. All right, so subject 1 is done. Anybody have anything else to add on the Atari news front? Please do so in the chat. I've been enjoying looking into it a little bit today, and I thought that it would make a great segment here for the first episode of the CRT Bunker. So, segment 1 over with. We're on good time frame here. Thank you again, everybody, this Monday morning. Our next segment is, well, let's see if I can remember which one I need to push here. I believe it's this button. There we go. Oh, I remembered. Who Watches the Watchmen? A segment that I actually ran a complete stream using that thumbnail, and I thought it was so good I wanted to reuse it again, and probably will reuse it to just introduce this segment anytime it comes up in the show. And the point of this segment is, if we're the only ones restoring and checking out this old hardware, who watches us? Who makes sure we're so-and-so, say, you know, doing the right thing and not going down the wrong path? So it's kind of like a checks and balance kind of idea. And this basically comes from hard experience a lot of times, and that's what today's Who Watches the Watchmen is all about. Now, many of you follow me on Twitter will know that I've been working on a Sony BVM D20 F1U. And it's been just a lot of work, lots of caps. I didn't really want to do a whole show where I was going through and, you know, showing everything I'd done on that. But if you want to go check my Twitter feed, you can find at USA Retro, you can find just threads of each individual board. And the reason I wanted to bring up this particular one was really this photo refers to the biggest portion of this whole thing, okay? This BVM I was servicing had 47,000 hours on it. And once you get that level of hours in it, it needs to have everything checked out pretty much, or you'll start to have issues. The cool thing is about this one, I discovered it can work with a lot of bad parts in it. Funny enough, this D20 is a workhorse compared to the other D series, like the D9, the D14, and the bigger Ds. They all have their little quirks. But this one has less of all of those quirks, the D20, and it can seem to work if there are some problems. Again, in the boards where you have a lot of bad caps, it still manages to function. But after 47,000 hours, it was time to get in there and service every single board. And some boards needed completely recapping. Other boards had already been partially recapped, so they only needed to have partial recapping. Other ones had caps that were not near aged, so they were left alone and then just serviced and tested, all kinds of things. But that really brings me to what's important here on this discussion. That's this board. If you ever look at the back of a Sony BVM, you'll notice a lot of boards. Let's see if I can find some more boards on there. I'm not sure. Well, regardless, this is the back side. This is the card that is in the far left, and it looks like it has 4 VGA inputs on it. But those aren't video inputs. Those are just to communicate. You can hook up the same VGA cables, but you hook them up to different devices that you can use to communicate with your monitor, and you can use this monitor to, you can tell it commands from an outside source, or vice versa. You sometimes can command outside sources from this. So these are not video sources. This is for remote. See how it says remote 2, remote 1. But this card has a lot of the information and all the data from the monitor stored on it, like the firmware, and even the important thing today is the hours counter, okay? And so it doesn't matter about this battery, because the battery, well, the battery doesn't, you know, changing the battery won't affect it. What happens is I serviced this board and it needed about 70-80% recap. So I had to remove all those caps, and you can tell that's what this picture is. It showed there's an empty pad here, and even through hole caps, all those were removed. Those were a couple bipolar caps that were fine. But after I got done running through that board and recapping it, there it's done. See how it's all finished, everything's good and ready to go. Once I reinstall the card, check it out. It resets the hours. So that's what I needed to tell everybody. When there's probably another way to short out a certain capacitor on that board, but when you service this board, which had to be done, the caps needed to be changed, it resets the hours counter. If you check out the hour operation time, 0000000, okay? But there's a tell. So this could be problematic if you were just able to reset a BVM's hours. So if you reset somebody's hours and then try to sell this monitor, you could, that's a sketchy thing. Thankfully, when this happens, Belmont, yeah, you're right ahead of me. The serial number right here, see how it's reset to 0? So there never was a 0. And I do not know, I have not been able to find if there's a method to go in here and reset this. There may be. I don't believe it would be easy. It's not like you could just plug in from what I can tell, I haven't been able to find anything in the menu that you can just go in there and tell it to put a different number in there. So it does start tracking hours again, because after some testing it went to 1, and then but if you ever see a very low operation time on the monitor, the first thing you need to do is check out the serial number and make sure that it still has a serial number on it. And then that serial number most likely will match the serial number on the shell of the BVM as well as inside the BVM. There should be a tag in there with that serial number, but it's not going to be 0. So if it says 0, it means it's been reset. Now, thankfully, with this client, I did have a photograph of the hours on there. And let me see if while I'm sitting here with you, I can't pull up the drive folder, and I can show you a couple of photographs of this monitor, because I was absolutely blown away the way this actually looked. This CRT looked amazing for something that was just had almost 48,000 hours on it. I'm going to pull up some pictures here of the finished. This is the picture I need to show you. This is the most important one. And That's this one. Like, look how great this was in the dark. Well, mostly dark, right about dawn. Look how great that tube just looks on its own. Like nothing. I mean, that is super balanced and bright, and that's on very low brightness. While it's got 48,000 hours on it almost. So someone shows you, if someone showed this to me, and again, I went through and resurfaced this CRT completely, so it looks, I mean, it looks very sharp. Like, it looks cleaned up, really cleaned up. Like, I cleaned up everything inside of it, so if you looked at this and you didn't know the actual hours, you could think something like this didn't have a lot of hours on it, and kind of be tricked if you didn't know that hours counter trick. Because even, I mean, look at this. This tube does not show, right? It doesn't show, like, it looks great. It looks like every other BVM D20. It's not blurry at all. The colors are really good. And that's, yeah, that's the finished one. So I wanted to tell everybody about that specifically, because that's kind of a big deal, you know, that I know. So you could, if I let this go out of my shop and I was like, here you go. And when let's not pretend like there haven't been shady characters in the CRT reselling business over the years. There've been plenty of them. If they figured out how to do this, they would have probably reset the hours on every single one of their monitors they sold. And if you have somebody like who's really good at restoring them, and they restore them for you, it's just too much. Like, you could really get somebody screwed up thinking that they got something that they really didn't get. So anyway, note that next time you look at a monitor and its service time. All right, guys and gals. Let's see. We got just some things on... yeah, Jay Lynch, you're welcome. And Ariel, welcome in. All right. So, that is going to do it for today's... Oh, come on. I know I can do it. I know I can remember, right? Who watches The Watchmen? Maybe I can get some, like, better sound effects, things like that, and then, you know, really have a high quality show here. But again, when it's just yourself and a pug that helps you produce the show by pretty much just snoring the entire time in your ear over here, then you have to do what you can do. All right, guys, I'm going to clean up my desktop here. I don't think there's anything else on that. Oh, I did forget one thing, actually. Let me reopen that, because there is one more. There we go. Just don't want it to start playing. Okay. Finally today, I'm going to pull over a presentation I did when was it? October. Last October, okay? I was at a presentation, and this is not one that this is one I do every year that I can make it to it, and I have made it every year back to it. Now let me show you what I'm talking about here. It's the Music City Multicon. And if I go down here and show you, this is their webpage. If you can make it to this, it's October 27th to the 29th. It's a lot of fun. Oh, look at the amazing stars that will be here with me. So I've got Danny Trejo, the $1 Million Man, Jimmy Hart. Look at all these old school wrestlers. I love it. IRS. And this is really a mix of all kinds of things. You got voice actors, comic book people. Our friends, the Pacina brothers, and Tim. Tim will be back. I love it. Hopefully I'll get to see Tim again. And then we've got My Life in Gaming, Mark Bustler from Classic Game Room, and then your boy Steve over here, still on the agenda, all the way at the bottom. So, what I'd like to do is just go through my presentation from last year. Yeah, okay. I didn't think anybody probably had seen this because the numbers weren't very big on this. It was like 400 views. But what I wanted to really do was kind of go through my presentation a little bit last year. We might skip through some of it because it is an hour long. I wonder if I can do like a playback speed of 1.25 and maybe not, and maybe I won't sound too awkward. We'll see. If I sound really awkward, we'll adjust that back. But what I'd love to do is kind of go through and critique this presentation with you guys. And this one is, just to give you a little bit more information, you can always go just Google Music City Multicon. But this one is it's outside of Nashville. It's Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah, some of you people have watched it. That's funny. Okay. Well, we won't try to skip through it too bad. I haven't watched it in a while. I do actually need to see what I did because I kind of winged this one. The other ones before this were more ones I tried to put together. PowerPoints for, and when you're doing like a 45 minutes, Brian, if you want to go back and check like the first 20-minute segment of today's show was on the Atari news. We kind of skipped, go back a segment. But anyway. We'll go through this presentation. I need to make sure. I'm going to start playing it, and then I'm going to have to make some adjustments to the volume. So give me a second as we go and work this out.
It's 1 o'clock, and we can go ahead and get started because there might be a chance we run a little bit out of time here. This is a brand new presentation. First off, thank you, everybody, for coming today. And
well, it does sound a little bit psychotic when I run it in that fast speed, so I might have to go back to normal speed because my energy level's always so high at these things. And then I need to make it so I don't hear it as loud as you guys hear it on your screen. But that's over on there. Let me turn that down a little bit.
My name is Steve. I've met a lot of you today, and some of you haven't. So if you'd like to say hello to me after the presentation, I do have a booth right by the main entrance. You just have to hang a right, and you can
Atari
see the CRTs.
Stock, yeah.
I've got a couple other
Sorry
CRTs
about Atari stock.
things there. And anyway, I just wanted to let you know this class is, again, brand new. It's about how a CRT works. And so, bear with me. We might work through some things. And this is a monitor here that is from 1993, and it is very complex. So we're going to walk kind of through this thing, talk about how a CRT actually works, what's actually happening. And as you can tell, this technology that is right here looks so much different than the flat screens of today. There's so much more going on here. And the reason really has to do with the video format itself. So I'm glad, again, to do this. I want to say a quick thank you to everybody who has helped put this show together and let me come and organize this, like Dave and his team here at the convention. And thanks again for everybody to be here. And just real quick, a little bit about RetroTech and my business. We do primarily restore and repair CRT televisions and monitors. And the mission statement for my business is resurrecting vintage technologies for the modern world. And that's pretty much the goal.
Okay, I will say that I've actually stuck with that. I ran businesses before, and it was kind of, I always thought it was a little bit cheesy to have mission statements and things like that, but I knew that if I could come up with a decent mission statement that I could stick with as kind of like the guiding point to the business, and it actually make a little sense. That is the mission statement. It always has been. It's even on like my first business card I ever got made out. But anyway, we'll get through this introduction and see what I actually do.
When I started Retrotech, and now it's been about 6 years. Last 2 years I've been doing this full time. And the really crazy thing is there's really nobody else trying to do this anymore. A lot of the people that I talk to, who I confide in and try to get any kind of knowledge from on these machines are, most of them are in their 90s, and they are infinitely knowledgeable on these pieces of machine because they spent their whole lives working on them. But unfortunately, when they go, a lot of the knowledge that was with them will be passed and will be gone forever. And so I'm trying to help by preserving that and preserving this machine for the next generation, and to make sure that people will be able to learn from this and use this, because it still does have a good amount of use in our modern world today. So that's just a little bit about that. Now, what is a CRT? Well, there's going to be some acronyms and things that we're going to go through today. So in case you've never heard of that, CRT stands for cathode ray tube. And that's pretty much referring to this device right here, which is, you know, the major part in this whole tube television or monitor setup. That is the tube itself. This is an 8-inch tube, so it came out of an 8-inch monitor, but it's just a scaled down version of the one in our demo unit today. And you can just see how big and different. It looks like a light bulb, but what it really is, it's a vacuum sealed glass tube, and then it's got an emissions part up here, and also a cathode and an anode cap, and then right here. So basically the way this gets an image onto the screen is the information is sent in the back here that you're going to display through your pictures, sent through a board like this. In here, it goes through this device inside the glass, which is called an electron gun.
I'm muted again. So, but anyway, I just wanted to say this guy did a great job of editing the video here, because this was something we had never tried before. We did it all once, and we did it one time. We were like, all right, let's just go for it. The recording turned out pretty good, and he was able to edit it back and forth. We'll get to see. Don't worry, I see, guys. Thank you. All right, let's get back in here.
And then your image is blasted in beams on the front of the screen. So it's a completely different technology than our normal technology, and that's why there's a lot of weird, almost tricks and magic going on when it comes to a CRT. Because if we could slow it down, we would see that all that's happening is these lines are being individually drawn on this tube face of the mask, and all it does is it does it at such a high speed, our eyes can't see it. So we don't see the flashing or the blinking. We just see it as a smooth, constant image. Now, that's kind of a little bit on the tube itself, and then we're going to use some other tricks here to do things. So that's a pretty, curved tube there. That's a Sony style tube, which they only curved on one side. If you go out to the showroom floor, you'll see many that are curved on all sides and flat sides. And that is just to help, early on these tubes had to be more and more curved, because when you're shooting an image through there, how do you get it to spread out evenly and show up evenly on that screen? And the way that was done was through this device here, which is called a deflection yoke. And so what this does is this directs your beams, and it tells them where to land on the front of your screen. And so that's the way that what happens here is the image is projected onto the screen, and the deflection yoke tells it where to land on your screen, and then you see it on your screen. And that uses magnets and magnetism. That's how that's drawn out. Those electrons are shot onto the screen, and then magnetism is used to pull them out and give you an image. And so that's a little bit on just how that's getting to the screen. And we're going to fire up this monitor here in a second. But just before we even do that, I would like to make a mention on safety, because these machines do have the potential to really hurt somebody if you do not know what you're doing on them. And that's probably one of the biggest keys, that if you can remember anything, just remember that you probably shouldn't just go and open your CRT at home and just like try to do what I'm doing today, unless you're really ready and really study up on what is really dangerous. Because this point right here, which goes into our tube in this hole right here. Now, this is not a hole that goes down into the tube. It's literally just a little diameter, like almost coin metal piece where electricity can go. But that can get up to 31,000 volts that goes into it while it's turned on. So you would never, for example, want to have your hand really on that area right there when it's running. Now, that is like the most important thing, is that anode cap. Now, the good thing is when it's turned off like this, it's not as it's pretty harmless, except again for that anode cap area, which I know you see me touching it. But again, these monitors are not, they're not going to shock me, but if you don't know, you could get shocked. So there's always that. I need to make sure everybody knows that. But we're going to go and just talk a little bit more about some of these parts. So where that really high voltage comes from is right here, this device here, and this is called your flyback transformer. So that sends in that high voltage into the back, and at the same time your image and your data is sent in through this neck board, and all the image is processed from the back end here. It's your signal goes in and it comes out the tube, but the information is sent from the neck board. And then there's other parts to this individual CRT that make it function. We've got our main board at the bottom, and then we've got, again, at the back here, at the back here, our input board. And then you can see where we've got RGB into this particular monitor. Now, a standard CRT in North America will not support RGB. It'll support normally composite video or RF video, or even if you have a better one, it might have S video and then component inputs. But RGB is just straight red, green, and
What's
blue.
up, Ash?
And then
Yeah,
sync.
thanks for coming
so
in.
you're not doing any processing on your colors. You're just sending them straight into the monitor. Again, that was not a standard that people were using in America, so we never really got a at-home use for it. But these monitors were commercially produced, so they had the inputs for that because they had commercial products that would use RGB. And then the reason that RGB is just so coveted now is because it's the best way to get retro games, clearest picture quality as you can, is through straight RGB into something that can read RGB properly. And
You guys can hear the cold snort in the background. So I'm just gonna tell you my critique so far for myself is sometimes I feel like I'm just going and going and going, which is okay, but it's hard to remember what you've gone over. Big fart. He's literally just snoring. I can't believe that. Yeah, no, that's how he snores. Sometimes he just lays there and snores like that. You can't. It's hard to sleep with him in the room if he's sleeping. Oh man. There you go. Anyway, let me show you just a quick look. You can see. Well, that's not the right one. There we go. There he is. There he goes. Oh, goodness. Okay. Sorry about that one. All right. So we're going to keep rolling through this. It starts to get good once I actually get into the presentation. Of course, I have to go through safety, and a little bit about how RGB works. I want to make this a little bit shorter so I can allow more time for the Q&A session.
And thankfully, with this device, you don't need anything else. You don't need any other devices to try to, descramble that or convert it into something that can be used on a modern TV. This one just takes it, accepts it, and spits out the image. So that's a little bit about that. Now, the image quality we're going for here, again, is higher, but also on the flip side of that, the reason, again, these are so desirable is the video signal itself from the older devices is actually a lower resolution than most modern devices will even be able to handle or properly interpret. So what I mean by that is this is running in the old school, either 480i, interlaced, that's when I say I, that's another acronym, interlaced video, or if we're going down even lower than that, in video games we're going to 240p, which is just 240 lines on the screen of progressive display. And so that is the reason that when you look at this screen, and if you guys want to look at this later, you're welcome to at the end of this, but if you come up and look at real close, you'll actually see the blacked out lines, because this screen can display, again, 480 lines, but it's only showing 240 lines are lit up, so the other 240 are left out blank, and it gives this black line in between each line, and so you don't have any flicker on the image, you don't have any, or you get an extra sharp look, and it's called scan lines. So if you hear that term, that's what scan lines are. And then the other format would be 480i, and the way this interprets that is it's going to show 240p twice almost. So it swaps. It shows it interlaced, so it's not always progressive like this. It's flashing back and forth the 240 lines, and then that's why it might flicker on the screen when you're watching, for example, like standard definition television or an older movie or something. So this thing here we're going to do is, I'm going to move on and we're going to do some demonstrations now on the screen. And we're going to go through some of the most amazing software for CRTs that you can find, and that is this 240p test suite from Artemio. And this is an open source free software that I've got a nice cartridge for it for my Super Nintendo. But this software is designed to be used in old devices like a Super Nintendo, and it's going to give us some incredible test patterns to be able to verify that our CRT is functioning, and also what happens. You could use this on other displays, but it's especially effective for CRT for checking the condition of the CRT, as well as making adjustments to your CRT and seeing if you're doing things the right way and how it looks afterwards. So it's really set up nicely. We've got test patterns in here. And if I just click on test patterns, we've got a bunch of different test patterns to choose from. But one of the ones that I really want to focus on most of all is this monoscope pattern. Okay? And this monoscope pattern has, it just looks like, obviously like squares, right? And different shapes. But we can use this kind of a pattern to judge things on our screen. And we can see, well, okay, so up here I might have a little bit of a color separation at my edge, because I can see that up here at this corner. Or there'll be other anomalies we can show in the screen. There's even some better color separation up here. So we can do things to try to improve that as we work. But also, if we have other things happening, this monitor, you have to adjust it internally. So it's a lot of fun to show you guys because, again, this is super old. Some new monitors and newer televisions, most of them will have a remote, and you can do all this without getting inside. But that wouldn't be as much fun for me to just sit around and hold a remote control and show you guys me flipping through a service menu, okay? That's boring. So we can manipulate this image on the screen with these amazing control board back here that you guys can't see from where you're sitting, unfortunately, but it's got little things I can stick this screwdriver in and turn, and you'll see image adjustment on the screen. So let's just try some of that stuff real quickly here, and we'll see what it does on the screen, and then we'll see if we can make it look even better. We can judge some different things on here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spin one of these potentiometers on here, and I'm just going to make sure that we're doing something on the screen. So you see there, this is our horizontal size control, right? And it's just crazy that you could just sit back here and turn this and manipulate that image. But if you have an issue, if you have an issue on this TV where you see that the horizontal size isn't big enough, well, then you can just expand that here, and you try to expand it out to the edge. You're like, okay, that looks pretty good. That's a little bit better. And then you look down here, and there's a bunch of other ones, and we'll find the next one, which will be our center. And let's hope I can find the right one. It's hard to see. Some of these they're not labeled perfectly, but see, that's the wrong one. And just start seeing if we can't find it. Well, that's a different one. See? So the way that this is all working is, again, these potentiometers are controlling the signal that's being sent to this deflection yoke, and the amount of energy being sent to this, the magnetism. I'm manipulating that magnetism by using this screwdriver and these potentiometers to adjust the screen. And the reason you would want to even do this in the first place is just to give you a better looking image on your screen when you're using it, and that's why you're using these tools. So just to give you a little bit of a run through on this pattern, because we're going to do some more adjustment on it, but the way this pattern is designed is the reason we have these squares and all this stuff kind of sectioned out is because, again, we could have issues on any portion of this screen. So we want to try to make these look uniform. One of the biggest key components on here is these are supposed to be squares. So if they're a little bit oblong or wrong shapen, then we can use these adjustments to try to make them be squares. The same thing with this bigger square. So if we see just the red square, I can actually use this software and get rid of all the other squares and just use the red squares. The red squares are designed to help you with your aspect ratio. So naturally, as I go through there and I adjust the size on the outside and the size vertically, well, if I did that and I didn't set that to a correct aspect ratio, then I could have like a oblong-shaped Mario, right, when I'm playing, because I have not got it right on the aspect ratio. So this tool is set up so that you can check your aspect ratio, and to do that, you just measure this side and then this side, and same thing with the larger square. And if those two measurements match, then you have perfect aspect ratio. So that's a really key thing for this tool kit and this software, is we can use that to make sure that our aspect ratio is perfect, and that will help, again, if you're playing a game and you don't want something to look a little bit misshapen. The interesting thing is when you do that and you do set it for the aspect ratio that's correct, you have to end up overscanning your image a little bit to get it to fit the screen, as well as be in good aspect ratio. Now, I do apologize because they do not put these in any particular order, and it's very difficult to see every little adjustment on here, but I think I found what we're looking for. Maybe? Well, vertical up and down.
All right, I'm just gonna take a second, take a break. We this particular monitor, this 4 series, is really great for these demonstrations, simply because it's the older one, and you can do, as I'm showing, a lot of manipulation of the image by just twisting some potentiometers, and I'll continue to do that more. I know some people are talking about pricing on stuff. If you actually can keep an eye out for these older 4 series PVMs in your local area, sometimes you can find them for cheaper because they're basically unshippable. Unless you ship them through UShip, they are unshippable because this whole bezel cracked one day when I grabbed it while I was moving the CRT just around in my shop, and I just grabbed the front of the bezel and tried to push it around a little bit, and it just snapped right off in my hands. This plastic is very brittle and old. But anyway, I thank you for everybody for hanging out and still watching this. We're going to continue on because it's going to get into the good part of the presentation, and I'm going to kind of give my thoughts at the end on what I'd like to see more of and less of, and then you can also give me some feedback.
And then, so that's, rather than me getting too much into those parts, that's kind of the adjustments for specifically geometry. Is you would go in and you would play with these, you would check with this pattern, and again, just try to get that all lined up, and then that will get you good aspect ratio. Now, some other things that we can do is we can talk about some other issues that you will probably find in a CRT, and we will try to go ahead and almost mimic that here again with this thing. So again, I was talking about this deflection yoke, and this thing is very finicky. So if at any time it's leaning a tiny bit, you'll see a big lean on the screen. Or if it tilts one direction, it'll completely mess up the image quality on the sides of the screen. And so we'll just, to show you basically how that looks, I'm just going to open this here, and we're going to move this yoke around a little bit.
I'm going to mess with them. Watch.
And you can see how the image looks, right? It changed a lot? Did it change a lot? I mean, it's just crazy that you could, it's all magnetism. And if that is not, again, set correctly, that easily over time that can move, right? Because I mean, these machines are from 93. That's almost 30 years. So very often that will move, and you'll have a crooked screen, okay? But something else that can happen is this can, let's go to a different type of test pattern. And that should be our colors, white, red, and blue, and green. Okay. So this is a white screen, okay? If this starts to go back a little bit, look at our colors on the side. If our yoke comes back just a tiny bit, it completely goofs up the colors. And you might look at this and think this tube is shot or something. But it's really, all it is the fact that the yoke is not pushed back up into place. And same thing, you'll get different, you might have a color here, and you could see where you'll have a big purple washout or something. So that just shows you how much, how finicky this thing can be, right? Okay?
Okay, so this was probably the highlight of the show, but I had to get 20 minutes to get to this point. So I wonder if maybe next year I'll maybe start by just saying this is a CRT and just start doing this stuff to get everybody kind of captivated to begin with, and walk through it in the after, doing this. I know that's the worst thing. One day I'm just gonna slip and accidentally stick my hand in the wrong spot, and at least I'll be leaving this world doing what I love to do. All right, just joking there. So we're gonna continue on, but this was pretty much the highlight section where people were really, in the audience were really impressed. And I know it's a lot of empty spots right there, but this was a pretty good turnout for my show. I want to say there was 30 people about in this one.
The other thing that may happen is you may have components that go bad actually on the board. And that's going to be normally electrolytic capacitors. And what that will do is that will make it so the adjustments that I was trying to make wouldn't actually do anything on the screen. Or they would make the screen not look quite right. It might always look oblong. It might always have a hook at the top. Now this one doesn't have those issues, but if you want to, I can go around and show you some some CRTs on the floor with some issues, and I could show you we could define what each one of those is. But so you may have an instance where you can't even get something in perfect shape because the capacitors may need to be replaced, because capacitors are only meant to last like 15 years. And again, we're already past that on most of these machines. So the bigger, lastly on these adjustments, there's other things too that will affect our image quality. Now the flyback sends, and we talked about that, sends that high current, that 31,000 volts in. If it also has to be tuned, and I'll show you how that looks. Maybe I could just leave it on this screen, and you'll probably be able to tell pretty good. And what we have to tune on that is called our focus. So this sends in a beam, and then it's actually got focus. So if I turn, you see how blurry can you guys see how blurry it just got? And like it doesn't look sharp at all. Well, that could be a simple thing of turning the potentiometer on the back of the flyback so that beam is focused. It's literally called focus on the back of the TV. And then another one that's fun is our convergence. And I'm not going to get into the details of just like corner convergence because that can be very finicky, and it's more of a advanced level of repair there if you ever have to mess with convergence rings in the corners. But there is an overall master convergence control on a CRT. So not everyone, but the high-end ones do have it. And if I adjust that, see that the beams on an electron gun are shot in 3 major primary colors, red, green, and blue. And again, that has to be lined up perfectly, or you'll see colors separate. So that's what I see. See separation here of blue, green, and red. So that just means those beams have been spread out too far, and the attempt is for the machine to send those in and make it clear, but if we don't have that adjusted correctly, we get it separated on our screen. So those are just some of the more master controls that are on most CRTs. And one of the more fun things here, I wanted to check us out on time, we're doing good, is let's go back to a white, red, green, and blue screen. So this is a good check for a couple of things. First off, sometimes, again, a CRT will have 3 primary colors that it's pushing on a color tube. If the colors don't look right, there's a chance that one of the colors is out in the tube. And what happens is over time, this is an unrepairable problem, unfortunately. What happens is the gun that's inside this tube shorts out one of the colors. It shoots 3 colors, red, green, and blue. Well, occasionally one of those colors, 2 of those colors can short out. And then you pull up these color screens on this test pattern, and you can cycle through them, and it'll show you each individual color. So that we have red, green, and blue, so we can verify that all 3 of those colors are still working. And then white is just all those colors at once, and it's maxed out, and that's pushing all those colors. And black is everything off, no image. So that's a way to test the tube to make sure that you're getting colors, but also we have, since this is all magnetic and everything is affected by magnetism on a CRT, we can get magnetic interference onto our screen. And that can be because we set a unshielded speaker too close to it, and then this color will change. Or it could be from a magnet in your pocket, or you just pushing a magnet on the screen, and you can get a magnetic issue. So I'm going to push this back up a little bit, try to get rid of that purple down at the bottom. And we're going to do a demonstration here of magnetism and how it affects the screen, what will happen to the screen, and then we'll correct it. But just so you know, this is This is something, again, this is a pretty specialty tool here, and it can be dangerous and a fire hazard if you don't know how to use it. That's really a rare situation where something like that would happen. But this thing right here is called a degaussing wand, and it is a commercial piece of equipment that generates an enormous amount of energy. It's going to generate a magnetic field, and then it will, you can't keep running it too long because it gets extremely hot and it'll melt. So you don't want to like use it for more than 2 minutes, and that's really the big warning. But what this does is if we get some magnetic interference on this tube, it's very hard to get that off and clear it up. Now, a lot of these will have a manual degausser, and that's what you hear at the beginning of when you turn the TV on, and sometimes you hear that bong, gong sound. That is the internal degausser going off, and it's trying to balance that magnetism, but it is not usually powerful enough to get rid of outside magnetism. So for the demonstration, we're going to introduce some funky magnetism to this. So if I just do this, we are going to whack out the colors, right? So there it is, right? I've gotten this, one of the fun things I like to do on my YouTube channel is I love to go and buy CRTs that are listed as being in great condition. And then, you get them home.
Don't worry, guys. Thankfully, the CRT repair wands are still made, so you don't have to worry about the price going up on them, even though we're talking about them.
Home, you fire it up, you unbox the thing, and then you turn it on, and you're like, oh, this is perfect condition, right? It looks great. So, I mean, because I know that's a red screen, but if I go back here and I like start up my normal software, we saw how it looked at the beginning. Well, now I'm like, what the heck? That doesn't look right. And no amount of, we will try. Let's see if we power cycle this. Maybe we can hear that gong, because this one doesn't have, oh, it does have the ability for me to do it. I'm sorry, I'm a dummy. Okay, let's let it go, turn back on, and see, there is a degauss button for this one. See, it'll do that. Oh, well, see, that did too good of a job. See, so that one cleared it up. So that wasn't any fun. That's not, there we go. So the internal degausser, it can clear it up sometimes, but if that doesn't clear it up and you hit it and it still looks like this, that's where this magic wand comes into handy. And I'm going to show you how we use this to clear this screen up. And the best thing to do is for me to go back to that color page so you can kind of see it a little bit better. Okay. I like using the red. It seems to come out really nicely. So the proper way, this has a method, you got to kind of hold it and slowly go in and make a circular motion, get close to the screen, and then that's my favorite part, right? That looks pretty darn cool. And then you slowly back away, make your ring bigger, and almost pull your power supply off, but we're good. And that's it. That's like demagnetized, the electrons have been balanced, and it's literally just that easy with the right tools. Because otherwise, how would you ever figure that out? I mean, it's like, it's an issue that's correctable, and just a lot of these tricks and things that I've been talking about have just been forgotten, and we've got to do I'm doing my part, try to preserve this information and help out. Now, well, I've gone for about 30 minutes here, and I'd want to give an opportunity to anybody if they have any kind of questions about anything I've said. If you'd like me to explain anything a little bit further.
Okay, all right. Yes. So that's, there's another, what looks to be about 20 minutes of questions. And out of respect, it does show people on here, so I mean, it doesn't really matter. But if you want to watch the Q&A session, I'll leave that. You can go find this video and RetroTech How Our CRT Works from the Music City Multicon page. You could check it out and see the rest the rest of that presentation there, if you want to see the whatever, I'm sorry, the Q&A. So that's it. And like next, it's going to be October before you know it. October. I'm sure it'll be 28th is the Saturday. That's the day I'll be scheduled to give a presentation again, and I'm going to do a presentation just like that, only I want to make it better. That was the first time I did it, so it was a little bit, jumping around, a little bit sporadic at some points, and I'd like to, I think, go from the talking so much and building up to the last third of the presentation being the fun part with the demonstrations. I feel like it would be better if I could somehow get it where the first third is the demonstrations, and then the next 2/3 of the presentation are more of the talking and the explanation and things like that. And again, if you're interested in seeing this presentation live, you can come to the Music City Multicon, October 27th to 29th in Tennessee. There's information on hotel deals. It's not a very expensive convention to have to attend as far as lodging and things, because it's not in downtown Nashville. It is, costs are a little bit less than if you have to travel to the Northeast or something, or the Northwest. But if you can't make it, the show runner records the presentations every year and releases them on his YouTube channel, and that will be there. I will also do a vlog style video, just like I did for the presentation or just like I did for the most recent trip I took out to Retro World Expo. So, but guys, that's really everything I had on paper to go through that's important. And so if you could be there, awesome. And let me know you're going to be there. I'll be glad to hang out. I'll have a booth. I want to go and, just have a good time. I love talking to people. I love talking about this stuff. You're welcome to come hang out with me at the show while I'm there, working at my booth. And so if there's any other feedback on what you thought of the presentation, feel free to add it here. I do have another show, episode 2 will be coming later this week. Looks like Thursday, like normal schedule. And I'm not sure that I'll have a video completely ready for, if I do have a video ready for this Friday for a real episode, it's going to be something short. I'm not quite sure what it would be yet, to be honest. I have a couple things recorded, but nothing else. Let's finish out. We can have a cool little discussion. You guys can ask some questions if you want. Other than that, here's what I did over the weekend. I actually do have some pictures of this. This was a pretty fun experience. I was at a looks like our Atari stopped. I went out to a football game this last weekend, college football or American style football, okay? And I've got some pictures of this trip. I'm a fan of a smaller school, not small school, but a smaller football program right now in the grand scheme of things. But they're trying to move up, and I think 10 years from now, people are going to really recognize them in the college football world. And that's James Madison University. I've got some pictures I'm going to show you because I went to... Let me pull up the drive folder. See if I can pull up these files. So I go to these games. Usually always go to the home games. Season ticket holder. Wow, these are all over the place as far as order. So let me show you some of these pictures, okay? It was a fun time at this game. And I'll just switch over to this and pull up some pictures. So here's this is the home game experience for me. Here's a good picture of home game, okay? Like you have to walk in, there's time, I mean, there's a couple of ways in, it takes a while, you're gonna walk through a line, there's me. This was last weekend, this was 2 weekends ago, sorry. This was our first home game. There's our seats, and that's stadium. It seats about 25,000 people. It's not the biggest stadium, but that whole section you see across the area is going to be bulldozed, and then they'll make it like a 50,000 seater. But it's a beautiful stadium, right? You can see the mountains in the background. There's a train track going through right over in this area. So I really love it. The football's really good too. Team won. There's the student section. It gets really wild over in there. They're down there partying. That's always funny to watch. So this is the home game. Here's the big nice screen, really cool athletic department, like workout area behind it. It's given it a really cool, feel for a stadium. Anyway, we go to them all the time. Well, this last weekend was an out-of-town game in Charlottesville, which is 1 hour away at a bigger school, the University of Virginia. And the interesting thing I will mention first about this game was the cornfields. The University of Virginia had a situation last year where a player on the team shot 3 or 4 other teammates and killed 3 of them. And because of that, it messed the whole football program up. They canceled their whole season last year after that happened. And this was their first home game since all that had happened. So there was a ceremony, ahead of time. I'll show you some stuff from that ceremony because I actually did get a couple pictures of that. But the game just turned out to be so wild. So it was, there's a lot of tension, but at the same time, this is so close to where we are, and we're a football program that's building, that's really looking forward to this matchup because it's a crosstown kind of rival. It's somebody who always thinks they're better than you kind of thing. They're a bigger program, bigger team. And we were like, so we're there. We're like, all right, this is a chance for us to go and get a big win here. And we're pumped. So there's a lot of fans. Like, I'm going to tell you the truth. Half the people in the stadium, it was 60,000 people in the stadium. Half them were wearing purple for JMU because, again, it's less than an hour drive from the campus, and our fan base is super ignited. So I do have some pictures of the stadium as it started to get going. And it is massive. And the best part about this, guys, my seats were third row right here at the 40-yard line and right behind the bench of all the team that my home team, right? So I'm right behind there. Like I was yelling at the players, saying, hey, come on, man, just go out there and crush them. And of course, they would be like, yeah, Steve's right. Go, go, go. So this was the early parts of the game. Everything's getting set up. This is when they're starting to do the ceremony. And this was what I thought was quite interesting. Look at this. This is their student section. Now a vast majority of their student section is this hill. Yeah. So it's a hill, like a steep hill, right? It's a hill. It's a messy, dirty hill right there. That's where all the kids are. I'm only bringing that out because and then there's me. Like, right, look how far. I was all the way almost front row with my son and my father there. And this was our view. Like, right here's the teams, here's the field. It was great. Let's see what else we got here. This is a picture of a guy like skydiving in. I might have a video of that. Yeah, check this video out. Okay, so you see that. That's like they had these guys coming in, and that was pretty cool. Here, this might be the other guy. He came in really fast. Oh no, this was kickoff. So I realize maybe you guys aren't football fans. It's okay. It's not. That's not really. I'm trying to think if there's anything. I don't even remember what these videos are. Okay, so this is again just after stadium fills up some. It was a beautiful day. And there I am, right? Having a great time. Okay. Down there, lots of purple, lots of orange. And yeah, I had to fight to get. So how I got these seats, I went to the University of Virginia's website the day they sold their their seats online, like the day they opened ticket seats. And 15 minutes later, I bought these seats, this third row package. They're only like 75 a piece, so I was happy. But let's see how many. Okay, I wanted to show this picture because this one, this is that stupid hill, right? Stupid hill. It's first half. And look how rowdy it's getting over there. It's all college kids. So what happened here, right? Look at this hill. There's the field right there, the field of play in Charlottesville. And this started to get dirty. These kids up here, you know, they're of course having a good time. But one of these boys slid. You can see how it messed up that mat. He slid down the hill down in here, and one of these cops came and grabbed him like he was running on the field ready to streak the place. And it was disgusting. Just like tackled him and stuff. And so I took this picture because right after that, look how many they sent every big boy pork chop out there to watch just this JMU student section. They sent every boss hog in the county to watch them. And it was just something that I saw that it was annoying. But what can you say? So what ends up happening in this game? Well, I think this is the last photo I took. Very last photo I took. Full stadium right there at the 50-yard line. A play going on. We came out to an early lead. Then all of a sudden, Virginia started to come back. And by halftime, it was close game. And then the second half started, and Virginia just took off, scored a bunch of touchdowns, and took. They were about they were up by 11 points. That's what happened. And then, man, you should have seen those UVA fans. They were pissed off at me when I was in that section because they were even. Again, they were winning, and I was sitting here. I can't even see if I could see the score at that point. I can't remember. I was sitting here, and I'm going to tell you the truth. This was the most annoying thing. So whenever Virginia would score a point, or sometimes even just get a good play, they'd all grab each other's shoulders, and they'd do this, and they'd start singing the dumb New Year's Eve song. The man on the plane just be forgot. And so they're going on doing this over and over again every time they do something good. It is so just annoying and stupid. So there was a big play in the third quarter, and it was a controversial play. It doesn't matter. Like, you can go watch, if you care about sports, you can go watch all this stuff. It's already been commented on like bigger outlets. They would what happened was we got a fumble. Their quarterback fumbles the ball. We get it back. They review the play. They say it's not a fumble. And everybody's like, it's a clear fumble. So these dadgum fans start singing again. They stop singing. Finally, the play stops. And I'm so mad. I'm just like, and I just start like mocking it, right? I'm just like mocking it. I'm like, the refs love UVA so much. Yes, they are so lame. And then when I'm doing this, you should have seen all the like smart ass doctors and UVAs that were sitting in like the third row, just looking at me like scum of the earth. Like, this guy is a disturbing, ugly dog. We want to put him down. And I said, guess what, suckers? I'm going back to Harrisonburg, and I ain't coming back here. You guys are too chicken. They only play once. UVA will only play us once every 40 years. So I was like, you won't have to see me again. So pretty much right after that fumble happens, I'm in there just talking stuff. All of a sudden, the sky opens up, and an unbelievable amount of rain just starts pouring down. And and I'm looking up, I'm like, what the heck just happened? And then there's an announcement saying All right, folks, the game has been postponed due to weather in the area. And I'm like, what? And it starts raining buckets. And the thing is I'm in the third row, and it's way long for me to get out of there. Like, it's like 75 rows to get back to where you can actually get to the concourse and get under some cover in this stadium. If I go back here, maybe I can get you a good shot. I mean, if you see, where's that picture of me looking back up at the stadium? If I can find that one behind the seats. Anyways, this is probably a good shot. So I'm down here in like this area, and I have to run all the way up these stairs to try to get under this place where another thousands of people are hiding to try to get out of the rain. Well, the rain sits there, and they start hey, listen to this. What's the one song you would never play if your opponent is fired up on the road trying to come back and win? What's the one song you should never play if their colors are purple? You should never play Purple Rain as everyone is leaving the stadium. So the idiots over at UVA, they motivated everybody in JMU by playing Purple Rain. Purple Rain, and everybody in purple's like, yeah, Dukes, blah. It was so amazing. I do have to say that I found let's see if I can find it on my Twitter feed here. I want to show you this. The stadium was pretty much cleared out, and the biggest badasses of the day were the Marching Royal Duke Band. That's the band. All right, let's see here. For JMU. Let me go find my Twitter feed. Hopefully I can find where I shared it. Look at this. These crazy kids. This is when the storm was called, right? Look at this. There they are. They sent them up in the 300 level during a lightning storm, and they just sat there like badasses and continued to play on the fight songs for JMU like it was the Titanic, and they were on there trying to, improve morale. And look at all these people running for the stands. Running. So I'm there laughing. I'm laughing at the UVA fans. I'm telling them, I said, hey, you're going to have to stay all four quarters if you think you're going to win this game. And they were like, yeah, right, we're leaving. And they all bailed. And like 90% of them bailed. And it was great. You go back, you can see JMU pulled off an amazing comeback. 12 points the last 10 minutes after the 1 hour delay. The stadium was basically emptied of 90% of the UVA fans. And the only people left were JMU and the UVA, poor UVA faithful. And they got to experience JMU's great comeback. We won 36-35, and actually our students that you saw down there being boss hogged, they all rushed the field. Nobody got in trouble, and we celebrated on their field the victory of the day. So that was basically the name of the show today was Behind Enemy Lines, and that's what it was, Behind Enemy Lines. But that's the story. I hope I didn't run off the entire audience there. If you guys really, really enjoyed it, let me know. As far as beer sales, I will tell you that they've changed all the rules. They let you buy as many beers as you want now. They used to limit you to 2 beers a game. And this year they've cut all that loose, man. They if you're 21, you can drink as many beers as you can have, just like the NFL, which is wild to me because there were a lot of people that, get inebriated. And yes, 2-0, and I'll be back at another football game on the 30th. So during the, live show, I'll update you if anything crazy happens, because it's a lot of fun, and it's been just a great experience. Like, my whole family goes down there. My wife works at the university. It's just a blast. So. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Pricing. Yeah. I hate to go check my wallet or my bank or credit card statement because I buy a $9 beers a pop, $9, which isn't that bad, but it's not great. It's $9 for a 16-ounce beer. Yeah, 16 ounces is about a pint, right? It's the bigger can. It's not the little regular cans. So that's a great way to start the show. I think we hit a 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. Had some fun. The dog, the poor dog. Look at him. He didn't even wake up. He's just been back here snoring for you guys the whole time. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I know it was a little bit different off the wall. Next time we're actually going to probably have to do some work because Thursday I'm going to need to do some soldering. So maybe we'll have fun on the first one to make everybody's Monday a little bit more enjoyable. And then we'll get to some more nitty gritty hard working on the Thursday live streams. But I had fun today. I hope you did too. And again, if you don't mind, if you haven't already, do me a favor and hit the like button. I appreciate all you guys. I know so many of you are Patreon members too. So thank you so much. I see you in the chat every time we have a stream. Thank you everybody to coming today. I will see you all next time later on this week on Thursday, baby. Let's do it. Thursday. I'll see you then.